team that'll help you to create more function in that area. Right? And I say a good healthcare team for you, right? So that's the genetics, and then you have germs. Well, it's not about the germ, it's about your immunity, isn't it? And in fact, conquering cancer, which one of my talks next year, I've always talked about cancer in men's health and women's health, but I'm thinking about just doing a conquer cancer and heart disease. And I've talked about heart disease and blood pressure and how to improve that naturally and so on. Conquering cancer will be about teaching people how to strengthen their immunity. And that's prevention, and that's natural strategies, which is little spoken about out there compared to where most money is spent from conquering cancer. Read the newspaper in the Toronto Star, 90% of money is spent on drugs and that approach for conquering cancer. Okay, that's very shortcoming to a disease that's passing heart disease, right? Where all of it's spent on medications, right? Vaccines, it's all. So, because we won't conquer cancer that way, will we? Right? We're going to conquer it through a strong immune system. Okay, then we have age. If you are, I have people who are seniors here that have healthier spines and healthier function in the body than 20-year-olds. Okay, and you've seen the 80-year-olds run marathons and 30-year-olds who can't do much, right? Or 20-year-olds, or even young age today. Okay, so it's not about age. It's about how we take care of ourselves and take charge of that area. And then what's the other one? Did I miss? Bad luck? It's not bad luck. So what is it really, right? It's lifestyle. I heard you guys even saying that before I said it, so it's excellent. Yeah, lifestyle, isn't it? So what can we do in our lifestyle that improves vitality and function? It all begins with education, and then your beliefs and education initiate your actions, right? So knowledge is power, but applied. I hope knowledge, I inspire you to make some changes in your thinking patterns tonight, right? But I also hope that you will apply, right? Which is the key. Because health is doing. Health is not just reading books. My passion is reading and reading more and more about health. But it's really doing, isn't it? Okay, great. So I hope that I'll inspire you to do some doing after this talk tonight to help in this. And this is a problem, right? For the unhealthy stress reaction. People can take on stress inappropriately, and that's take on emotional stress. Well, physiologically, many things happen in our body, unfortunately. Right? You're going to have less oxygen and more carbon dioxide. With less oxygen, just right away, you're more susceptible to cancer. You're more susceptible to microbes, everything. Just having less oxygen. Less energy, less vitality, and so on. So stress creates shallow breathing, which creates less oxygen. Right? But what else? It goes on and on. You know that 75% of, they say, 75% of people's reasons for seeing healthcare doctors is stress. But stress creates physiological change. Just give yourself chronic stress for enough time, you're going to have physical changes in your body, right? So it's real, right? It's body changes, right? But it's a big deal. We need to control this cycle, right? So clotting, blood becomes more sticky, blood pressure goes up. Do we gain fat or lose fat when we have stress? Well, you're running around, right? You're busy, doing. Today's society is all doing and busy, right? But is that how people lose weight or gain weight? Gain, right? It's the fight or flight stress response that teaches your body to hold on to calories. It's a starvation, fight or flight, right? We're going to talk a bit about that. That starvation mechanism of you being in stress. Because it's not about running away from the bear, is it today, right? You're running away from your enemy that our ancestors did, right? Our bodies are built to be, yes, positively stimulated. Stress creates wonderful help for our body, right? We need to have positive stresses. Like, things happen in our lives that creates challenges, and those are good things, right? Like getting married, it's a stress, but but it's a good thing for our bodies and life and so on. But anyway, unfortunately, there's a lot of negative stress, and there's a lot of negative news, and there's a lot of different things like that. And people's lives are so busy today that there's stress going on. And stress promotes all these physiological changes, unfortunately, if it's prolonged. Okay, and that can create increased fat and so on. So why? It also because it increases insulin, increases adrenaline and cortisol, all these bad hormones. And bad hormones, when they're raised in your body, right? When these hormones are swimming through your bloodstream because you have stress, they're making your blood more sticky. So you're much more at risk for heart attacks and stroke, right? And everything else. Tension in muscles, stomach and digestive problems. It really does go on and on. Okay, stress, what can it affect, right? It's not a good thing. So if we do a symptom approach, which people want quick fixes, but really it's not a fix, right? It's a short term putting disease deeper, right? I always say taking medication is lazy on the part of two people, right? And that's the doctor and the patient, right? It's a lazy approach. But anyway, if we do, and I have taken some medication if I ever had to, and for a serious emergency situation, that's what medication is for, but it's certainly not for chronic functional improvements, which most people have chronic problems. So if we do take it for stress, it creates a low resistance, results in sickness, and you're in the vicious cycle, right? All right, so how do we break that cycle? Well, part of breaking that cycle is your spine and nervous system plays a big role in your body relaxing and your nervous system helping your health. So optimal spinal health and nerve flow is very key. Okay? In fact, the healthier your spine is, the healthier nerve flow, and the stronger, better balanced your immune system will be. There's so much research on how the spine connects to your health, but how the spine connects to your immunity, what stress lowers, right? Stress depresses immunity. If you compile your mental, emotional stress on with a body that also has some breakdown, like degeneration, we're going to talk about degeneration in the body, like in the spine, well, now you've got a lowered nervous system health. With a lowered nervous system health, do you know that it suppresses your immunity 200-300%? Because people that have a healthier spine, proven, versus an unhealthy spine, that means people that receive chiropractic care, they've done studies, have an increased immunity by 2 to 3 times. Your nerves are your immunity. Your spine and your nerves are your immunity. That's well proven. All right, so that's just about that point there. But it affects all organs, not just your immunity, your spine and nerve flow, right? So this is the most common presenting abnormal posture, which is affecting people's nerves, which is creating much more tension and adding to the mental, emotional stress, perhaps. And that is the head-forward posture, the simple body being slouched, right? It has connections to all these different problems. And for sure it creates degeneration, which you're going to see in a moment. If you're out of alignment, you're creating degeneration in your spine. Okay? So there are always 3 potential stressors or interferences to our nervous system. Everything impacts the nerves, whether it's nutritional, toxins, whether it's mental, emotional, whether we're talking the spine itself. It's all being taken in by your nerves, and it's all affecting it. So these 3, let's talk about this. Actually, let's talk about generally what stress does first, but those are 3 big ones I already said that we're encompassing in our topic tonight. Physical, mental, emotional, and chemical, right? So anyway, 3 phases of stress. Alarm. Well, if we have short-term stress, our body can deal with some short-term stress, and that's an alarm. Any physical or mental trauma causes sudden release of stress hormones. The body can deal with that, but do you know those stress hormones in your body when they are released because a boss tells you, you might be fired, if you don't do this or that or whatever it is, right? With that stress, those hormones stay, especially if you have stress just before bed, sleep. Those hormones have a lifespan of like 2 to 3 times in your bloodstream. In other words, that cortisol stays in your bloodstream like 6 hours. So that burst of cortisol has about a lifespan, I've read, of 4 to 6 hours. It takes your body now time to come back down to ground zero, to balance, right? Once you've got some stress. So you can increase and speed that up, I believe, through breathing. We're going to talk about things like this, right? But anyway, that's that. So hopefully that'll be it, right? But then if you keep having stress, you're going to go into resistance. If the stress factor continues, our bodies learn to tolerate or adapt to the stressful stimulus and increases its resistance. So when the body faces challenge, it's amazing how the body survives, right? It'll adapt, it'll keep fighting it, right? But if it keeps fighting and being stimulated, your adrenal glands, for instance, the gland with regard to stress, you keep challenging it, the body can't keep taking it. Just like you can't keep taking an unhealthy spine. It's going to deteriorate, and eventually you're going to get symptoms, right? Symptoms are lost appear in all disease, right? So exhaustion, the power, and this is the unfortunate 3rd phase if you don't take charge of stress. And that's the power of the resistance against stress is not inexhaustible. Everyone's immunity at some point collapses following prolonged stress reactions in other organ systems